So I get the honor to introduce our speaker today, Colonel Allan Pedersen. But also I want to recognize Meta Pedersen, his wife, who's been staying with us with the last few days, a wonderful person, and it's been really a great honor to have her too. So Allan, who started his military in 1990, is from Denmark. And I'll tell you this, I've been working on a book on the coalition, and every time I've been talking to people from Denmark or talking to they all say that Denmark fights above its pay grade. They really have showed up in Afghanistan and Iraq, wherever they have been, and have done much more than many small nations. In fact, comparable to many big nations. So to tell you a little bit about Allan, he served in Brussels, and the term dual-hatted is meaning he had two different positions, but he worked both as a deputy representative to NATO and the EU. And then in January 2024, he was taking the job of the senior representative at Central Command for Denmark. But not only was he that, but he also took on the job of the chairman of this coalition. It's a coalition of international officers who showed up starting in 2001 after 9/11 to support our work fighting terrorism, and have been here since, and they're still there. And every year they have a chairman, and the chairman's job is to herd the cats, actually to make sure that everybody's connected to what's going on. He's also the person who works directly with the Chief of Staff and the 4-star General Head of Central Command. And so he has a very interesting job, so he represents both his country, but also many nations. So it's my honor to introduce Allan Pedersen, Colonel Pedersen.
Thank you so much, Rob. I'll start with a quote. "The only thing worth fighting with allies is fighting without them." True, said by Winston Churchill after the Second World War. Where I work now, CENTCOM has a saying as well: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And by saying this, I also sort of hint to my position on this, being that I'm a big fan of multinational operations and cooperation. And of course, being in a coalition right now, it's a great honor to me. Like Rob said, first of all, I'd of course like to thank all of you for having me as a speaker. Thanks to you, Rob, and Susanne for having us over in your house. It's been an honor. Like was said, I'm a colonel in the Danish Army, and since I started in the Army, actually, I'm at my first deployment in 1994 as a UN peacekeeping soldier. I've been working in multinational organizations or in a coalition framework. So to us, it is kind of second nature to be working in a multinational framework and within coalitions. So, and that is what I'll be trying to relay to you today. A lot of talk about the coalition, a lot of talk about multinational cooperation and partnering, and of course, like I said, I'm really a big fan of it. So forgive me for being biased. The general topic today, like multinational partnering and the coalition, I'll touch upon both of them, but I'll also touch a bit upon NATO, of course, and the support to Ukraine, as when I was in Brussels, I kind of experienced it firsthand. Is it Yeah. I'll move a bit closer to the mic. Thank you. So, having a coalition is actually hard work. It needs constant nurturing. It needs constant work. And I mean, not just on the host, but for all us participating in the coalition as well. So this two-way road is actually a thing we are really observant about in CENTCOM, because we have a tendency sometimes just to expect a lot from the host and just be on the receiving end of it. But actually, it takes a lot for us as well to participate in this cooperation. Yes, it can be hard work. It can be frustrating at times. But still, in the end, I think that it's the rewards are even greater, than just going along for ourselves. Let's turn to NATO and the Ukraine war. For us, for my country, NATO is really a cornerstone in our security policy, and it has been ever since we joined as a founding member in 1949. I know that ever since the Cold War ended and the wall sort of came down in Berlin, NATO has been struggling to find itself, find the core values. But ever since and during that entire time, it's always been about deterrence and, of course, collective defense of all the member states. So even though it has expanded, it's now 32 countries, including Finland and Sweden, which we, of course, are really grateful for, where I come from. It's now reorienting itself against the defense from Russia and the Russian aggression. So if you follow NATO, if you follow any of the news articles, news in the televisions, that's kind of what's happening. So we have to, I would say, reinvent what we had during the Cold War, but it's kind of the same. We are moving back towards that kind of situation. I'm sure I need not remind you, but I'll do it anyway. The Article 5, the Musketeer article of NATO, the NATO Pact, has been only instigated once or evoked once, and that was actually in the defense of the United States after 9/11 in 2001. Recently, we have had a few minor consultations. It's the Article 4 consultations instigated by Poland due to, first of all, the Russian annexation of Crimea, but also after a lot of violations of the Polish airspace with drones and other stuff. So NATO is working this, and it is indeed a live organization. And even though, working in Brussels, it can be a lot of tedious work. We go to a lot of working groups. There's a lot of political sort of considerations to take into account. And in peacetime, every country, every nation seem to have like their pet projects or their favorites sort of things to go to. And of course, there will be countries, when we sit in a working group, writing their own priorities and so on. But what I saw was that once the invasion of Ukraine happened, all that was actually put aside. And that was really comforting to me. We had a lot of political discussions before the invasion. Everybody was following. And actually on the exact morning when it happened, I was woken up at 4 a.m. and about 9 a.m. the political side of NATO, they had done all their meetings. They had decided the path for NATO. And it was like, for me it was totally puzzling because we had been working in this hectic headquarters and with all the national representations. But once that decision had been made, everything quieted down. So it's like, whoa, what's going to happen now? I haven't been working in that place before, but just the expectation that surely this cannot be it. But at the political level, that was it. And the unity that it showed was actually quite comforting to me. I switched during that time also to cover the European Union, and I can say it's actually it's actually the same for the European Union. A lot of political talks, a lot of sort of inter-nation rivalry, I would say. But once it really gets serious, it actually gets going rather fast. So within 1 week after the invasion, the European Union had set up a mechanism in order to coordinate all the donations and all the support to Ukraine. So within 1 week, I was attending meetings, coordinating how much artillery munitions should go, and having a representative from the Ukrainian armed forces being present at the meetings with a priority list of what they actually needed. And we were trying to coordinate which country can actually support with what. Either it was weapons, it was even flak jackets, helmets, and so on. But also on the civilian side, support to the civilian community or civilians suffering from the war as well. So even though we have all these national priorities, we have a lot of it can be really foot dragging at the political level and even in the military level because we are influenced by the same. But it was really a pleasure that it actually turned out this well. Yeah. When I think back about the same period, there was a lot of talk, a lot of hesitation along the member states, and that goes for both NATO and the European Union. Nobody wanted actually to get involved because we had this fear of a full-blown war. There were talks, and to be honest, serious talks about the use of Russian nuclear tactical weapons, and that was sort of what kept everyone back. We talked a lot about red lines, and the one thing I've learned from talking about red lines is that it's only my perception of the opponent's red line. It isn't, a set line in the sand. You cannot consider it like a borderline or anything between two countries. It is a kind of a perception in our heads, and that line has been pushed back a lot of times by now. We have seen countries donating a lot of military equipment. At first, we were really reluctant to donating fighter aircraft, but I'm very pleased that my country was one of the leading nations in donating F-16s to the Ukrainian Air Force, and sort of pushed the line back. And I know that in the news these days, there's a lot of talk about ballistic missiles as well. So just to say, this line is really being pushed back. And if I look at it in retrospect, I would have really hoped that we have been this firm from the beginning, because then I think that we would at least have been able to stop the Russian offensive a lot before. But sorry, but that's history, and that's now not where we are at. Right now, we are actually in Ukraine. We're in a situation where it's a kind of a war of attrition, and we have been there since the winter of 22. So rather quickly, it turned into this frozen conflict with a front line that's marginally moved ever since. The Russians have lately been gaining some tactical successes on the battlefield, but still they haven't been able to make a breakthrough, and neither has the Ukrainian side. So right now we are seeing that this is a kind of locked in. It's a locked conflict, and that's what all the peace talks is going on about now. Who has the actual will to continue? I can definitely assure you that Ukrainians have the will to continue fighting, and as long as we, the Western countries and the European countries, my country, keep supporting them with the weapons, I'm pretty sure that they will keep on fighting. On the other hand, one thing is the will, and the other thing is the cost, or the costs to the society. So both on the Ukrainian side, they have really had some, to pay some costs for this, not just in buildings being hit, but suffering for the population as well. But I do see that they are willing to absorb that cost and willing to keep on fighting. Whereas the Russians is going to be willing to do the same, we don't know. But this thing about imposing costs on the opponents, that's actually what's going on right now and has been going on for some years. So hopefully, when I look at it from my country, we'll be able to continue imposing costs on Russia for this. We'll keep imposing sanctions, keep imposing, of course, delivering weapons, so the Ukrainians will be able to hit key strategic targets within Russia as well. For us, it's like the Ukrainians are fighting our war. They are fighting for our freedom as well. So we are really, really willing to provide them with a lot of support. I'm pretty sure that if they are not stopped, next countries we'll see will be Moldova. We have had talks about Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, because they have large Russian minorities as well. So it's kind of a set rule book. They are following the Russians. And maybe even Poland. The borders of Poland have shifted throughout the last 100 years. So this conception, or this being a nation state, that doesn't really exist in the Eastern European countries. The borders have moved too much during recent years. So giving the Russians a lot of, sort of, in their view anyway, legitimacy to sort of free their people. I remember they granted Russian passports to anyone in these countries that wanted Russian passports, just as a, a precaution or a preparation for a later claim to be able to free them. Yep. So looking a bit about the entire period with both the Ukraine war and NATO, I think that we as the Europeans, I deeply regret that we have been too naive in trusting Russia and cut back on our militaries. No doubt about it. I can assure you of that. There's been a lot of talk about burden sharing and so on. But from the military point of view, I deeply regret that, of course. And in that, also, to me, it seemed that we have actually expected the United States to be both in the front line with the high readiness forces, highly mobile forces, and we sort of were able to just lean back and enjoy the benefits of the peace. But again, that's to our regret, and that's actually what's bothering us now, and that's what is really going to cost us right now, because getting the militaries up to speed is a huge task, but we are. And my being military, I just hope that our politicians will really have learned the lessons, and also that I'll be able to explain to my kids and maybe their kids that they should keep investing in the military. Because, yeah, like I saw a T-shirt the other day here in Greenville, freedom is not free, and I really hope that that's the message that gets across to our politicians. Now I'll turn a bit from NATO and Ukraine and look at the coalition. And like Rob said, we need to move a bit. Sorry for forgetting that, but it's basically it's just some pictures and a little bit of the text that I have been talking about, NATO and the collective defense, the expansion, role in peace and deterrence, the Ukraine lessons, and of course the rearmament of Europe. I didn't put this in my script, but I can tell you that there's a lot of talk at the moment going on with regard to the what's called the military industrial base, because that's really been cut down, and even if the companies wanted to ramp up production, they'll not be able to get the skilled workers, they'll not be able to build the factories as fast as we are actually expecting the equipment to get to be delivered to us. So, looking at the coalition, like Rob said in the beginning, it kind of started in 2001, but in military headquarters we've always exchanged liaison officers. And that has been the case at the US CENTCOM as well, going back even before 2001. But it really accelerated after 9/11. And really quickly, a coalition formed that was to take on the fight against Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. And later on, after the second invasion of Iraq in 2003, it got sort of that dual front, Afghanistan and Iraq. And the coalition, it grew stronger. A lot of countries came to the coalition, and it was sort of set on these two main enemies, Al-Qaeda and of course, the rebuilding of Iraq. In 2014, there was a change in the coalition as the ISIS emerged in Syria and Iraq, and the coalition shifted towards that sort of fight. In our every daily business, we call it Defeat ISIS. And of course, the large troop deployments, they continued, and in both Iraq and Syria, and that's actually where we are at right now. We have a global coalition, a political coalition of 80-some countries, again with the focus to defeat ISIS. And this global coalition made a smaller military coalition with military contributions into Iraq and Syria. And this coalition has actually been quite successful. So now the Iraqis are able to take over a lot more responsibility of the security in their own country. In the coalition, we have a motto, one mission, many nations, and that is sort of encompassing the everyday coalition business. But I'm pretty sure you can imagine as the fight against ISIS is being more and more successful, the coalition, the military coalition is actually shrinking. A lot of countries will do other business. They have other priorities, and that's the case in our coalition as well. So as of September this year, the military operations within Iraq will actually, they did cease, and it's now for the Iraqis to ask for our support. So you could say that we are moving from a coalition supporting Iraq into a more coordinated bilateral cooperation, where the Iraqis will ask for specific military support from any country that would like to support them. And the coalition will transition or shift, and it will now be more like focused on Syria. I'm pretty sure you have followed the news and the situation in Syria as well. And ever since Assad was ousted and took kind of into Russia and living there now, the new government, we call it the new government of Syria, have been trying to find the way to do business. And so far, it's actually looking quite good. It's still early days, we all admit that. But the new Syrian government, they are saying the right things, and they work in the intent of keeping Syria as stable as possible. And that's actually to the benefit of all of us. So you could say that with regard to Syria, it's a good thing that we are lifting all the sanctions against Syria, because that's making more stability. We don't have that many warring factions anyway. And from a Western point of view, it's also really supporting sort of the strategic competition with Russia, with China, with Iran as well. So if we can make the Syrian government choose us, the Western countries, as the partners of choice, that's to our benefit, having a stable Syria. Enough about the current situation. Within the coalition, we are 34 countries. We have a few more hanging around. So these countries that don't have a permanent presence, they are either at the US CENTCOM or they are at somewhere embedded within US Central Command. The sizes of the offices, it varies. My Australian colleague and New Zealand colleague, they're only one, the senior national representative in the office, whereas bigger countries like Spain, Italy, France, the UK, they have more people at CENTCOM. So you can also, of course, understand that depends upon each and every nation's priorities and engagement with CENTCOM and the US military in the Middle East. So, and that goes for the rankings as well. So we have representatives being majors, and the highest ranking being the British senior national. He is a major general. And despite the rank differences, when we talk amongst each other, there's no higher or lower rank. We talk country to country, and that's actually one of the big benefits for us. So I have never seen any place like this anywhere in the world with any of the American combatant commands or anywhere else. So this is a unique organization, the coalition being a unique structure. And even though we have liaison officers, my country at the US Pacific Command or NORTHCOM as well, they don't have a setup like this. And this is really one of the strengths in having a coalition. So we, of course, as nationals, we have reached back to our countries. It's really easy for us to get political guidance on anything. So we are really very quick to respond to any needs or to any arising situations. And that's actually the case as we speak with regard to Gaza. So a lot of work has gone into that peace deal, and a lot of our countries are already involved with our home countries in order to find out how can we support and how what is actually going to support the coalition as well. So there are internal tensions or pitfalls as well, of course, bringing this group together and putting them in one place, despite all our political differences. We see that every day as well. I'm pretty sure that you can imagine when you place a representative from Israel and some representatives from the Arab world, that will need to be resolved in a delicate matter anyway. I think that's the most political way I can say it. But there are also, of course, tensions between some of the countries with regard to old grudges. Luckily, my country doesn't have that problem with Sweden, for instance. But there might be other countries that have been at war recently, where it'll be a problem even being in the same room or sitting next to each other. So taking that into account, that's kind of my business as well as a chairman, to make sure that we don't sort of fall into any of those traps, and make sure that every voice is heard, because it is one voice. It is one nation, one voice, and that's what I'm, as a chairman, trying to relate to all of them. Like I said, with the coalition, it seems that you can always talk about having a coalition, and I said one mission, but in reality, we all work for our own country as well. So we have of course we need to take into account what's going on in the coalition, but we also need to take our national business into account, national priorities as well. But despite all that, the communication between us and just being honest and open about our national priorities is actually what's making the best of this. Within the coalition, if you look at it, you might think that this is one solid group. It's a firm setting, but really it isn't. We have lots of smaller groups within the coalition. I'm sure you are familiar with the Five Eyes community, with the 5 countries, but also the regional countries. We have some gatherings of about 14 countries, and of course the entire group of 34 countries. And in the best reality of everything, we would be able to share any information, we would be able to share as much intelligence to the benefit of all of us, but of course that's not the case. I'm pretty sure you're also familiar with the terms need to know and nice to know, and that's actually what's everyday business. It's not like we are annoyed about it. It's just a setting in the work that we do, and of course it's to the benefit or because we need to take care of our soldiers and operational security as well. We understand that as militaries. But a lot of people get really hyped about it and try to say, oh, we should share everything. But to be honest, I'm not sure we would be able to cope with getting all that information as well. So I think it's okay. Like examples?
I don't know if everybody knows what Five Eyes.
Oh, yeah, okay. The Five Eyes is an intelligence, primarily intelligence cooperation between the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and they have their own secret network that they're pushing information on. And we are not, as not member of the Five Eyes community, we are not getting the same information, so they need to physically move information from one computer to another. It's like separate networks. And this, we saw kind of this when the campaign against the Houthis started. Some countries were let into information briefs about what was going on in the Red Sea, but it all depended upon if we were actively supporting that campaign. So, for instance, France, Great Britain, with permanent presence in the Middle East, were more engaged than my country. My country was engaged in the early 2024 when we sent a frigate to the Red Sea. But it's like once you're in, and once the frigate left again, you're out. So that's how it works, because, again, need to know and nice to know. And of course, the Americans have a special relationship with all the regional countries. They are, to me, they should be the most prominent members of the coalition because it's all happening within their country, within their region. And we are all like a supporting act to that one. And as examples of that, the former commander of CENTCOM, he did 43 trips to the region, all of them about a week or more in duration, and he was the commander for 3.5 years. After, or at his retirement ceremony, he told us that he actually got pictures from some of the chiefs of defenses of their grandchildren. That's how close they actually get. And the Pakistani chief of defense, a field marshal equivalent of a 5-star general, attended the retirement ceremony as well, saying something about the engagement and sort of the investment into that region. And of course, it's on behalf of your country, but it's also on behalf of the coalition. So you can imagine the work that CENTCOM has been putting into this. That's really a big feat. I must remember to push this one. Yep. On an everyday basis, we have like annual events, conferences, we have weekly meetings, and of course we get an update from the military mission in Iraq. I, as the chairman of the coalition, I host a weekly meeting as well, trying to coordinate all the 34 countries and relaying sort of the major events to them on this meeting. But it's also a meeting that's where we are able to discuss any subjects that we would be able or we would like to relate to CENTCOM. So I'm kind of the gearbox in between CENTCOM and all the coalition members. And I need to take into account that I need to listen to each and every one of the countries just to get their perspectives, so I can I can balance. It shouldn't just be the country that's the loudest country, but really be keen on asking the ones that's being quiet as well. And that's where culture kind of plays in, because some of the regional countries, maybe if you have all 34 countries in one room, they might be reluctant to say something, but if you break it down into smaller groups or even one-on-one sessions, they are more open and they are more willing to share, actually, to me at least, vital information about their countries and how they would be able to support if we were to do this or that. We also have regular meetings with the senior leadership of CENTCOM, so we have generals coming over and informing us about any current operations or planning going on, and that's a huge benefit for us because we are able to provide that information back to our countries. And of course we will have Q&As as well, so we can get into the details. On a regular basis we have special meetings with political advisors as well from the US State Department. And to my experience, the combatant commands and at least CENTCOM have a lot more details about the current situation than if our liaison officer at Pentagon would ask the same questions. So we get a lot of more information from the combatant commanders. And like I said a bit earlier, CENTCOM has a lot of bilateral coordination as well. CENTCOM is really keen on getting of course, access to countries. They have special bases in some certain countries. And of course, if they conduct operations, they will need access to fly over some of the country's airspaces as well. And all of that is taken care of by the national representatives. It's not obvious to all of us, and they don't advertise it. So it's like we know it's happening, but the country itself will decide if they actually tell us about it. My predecessor, he instigated some discussion groups because we realized that, even though we are in one big building, we have a tendency of going into our offices and shutting the doors maybe because we have to look at some classified systems. But he instigated discussion groups, so every second week we have a group session of 5 to 6 countries and just talking about anything really. It doesn't have to be military business, but it's a matter of breaking down the natural barriers that actually occur when we are a lot of new people, and we have rotations like 1/3 every year, rotating in and out, so we need to, of course, be open to all of the new people as well. In case of any special events going on in the region. We have special briefings, of course. And I tried to make a list here of the briefings that I have attended ever since I got to CENTCOM. And after looking at it, I kind of lost my breath. But the aftermath of Hamas attack on Israel, 7 October 23, we have the military support, so humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza, joint logistics over the shore. I don't know if you remember, they built a pier on the beach of Gaza. Airdrops flying out of Jordan, defensive and offensive campaigns against the Houthis and the Red Sea, support to the international shipping. We had Israeli attacks on the leadership of Lebanese Hezbollah, the Iranian consulate in Beirut. We had Iranian retaliation attacks, actually the largest missile attacks in history. We have had the American/Israeli attacks on the Iranian nuclear facilities in Iran. We have had Iranian attack on the American base in Qatar. And finally, we have had the Indian-Pakistani conflict as well. So this is really a region with a lot of conflict. And right now, we are looking into Gaza as well. So all of this sort of emphasizes to me that right now we are at a sort of a fork road, because we have this coalition focused on defeat of ISIS. However, the defeat of ISIS and the operations against ISIS is just a tiny small part of being at CENTCOM. How it will evolve, we don't know, but I'm pretty sure if it will evolve into something new. I'm pretty sure that the majority of the current countries, they will remain at CENTCOM, because it's really a great benefit for us. And how it plays out actually depends on the people. It depends on me as the SNR, it depends on the senior leadership in CENTCOM, and how much we are willing to invest into this coalition or multinational network or whatever we will transition into. It is hard work, we know that. But even though it's hard, and even though we don't have the answers to any of all these strategic dilemmas, we don't have the answers to the current situation as it unfolds, that shouldn't keep us from doing it. It shouldn't keep us from engaging with each other. It shouldn't keep us from providing our national points of view to all the other countries as well. So that's at least what I'm hoping for in the future. And just seeing this unfold firsthand at CENTCOM, that's really a big thing to me, and I feel really blessed that I get to see it. Like I said in the beginning, I strongly believe in multinational partnering. I strongly believe in coalitions because it's to the benefit of all of us. Nobody in this world can face the challenges we have with the three strategic actors of Russia, Iran, and China, maybe at the same time. No one of us can do that at the same time. So hopefully this will tell us that we want to go far and we want to go with others, but sometimes our political and maybe military masters tend to be impatient, and that sort of pushes the idea of us wanting to go alone. I don't hope that happen, but at least that's what we are seeing now and then. So thank you all for listening so far. And now it's time for questions. And please don't hesitate to ask any questions with regard to NATO, the European Union, the Middle East, my country even. So please, I'll try to relay. Please speak up, but I'll try to relay your questions with respect for the video as well. So Bob? Yes, we do have troops in Greenland. We have a 2-star military headquarters in the capital of Greenland, and they are taking care of both air, land, and sea forces. So yes, we have. We have naval ships. We don't have fighter aircraft on a permanent basis due to the weather, but we have soldiers on the ground. We have up in the northeastern part of Greenland, it's a big national park. We have sledge teams with dogs, so they patrol that area all around the year. So yes. Yes, thank you for the question. Just for the mic, the question was if CENTCOM is taking on any role in the oil coming from the region into Russia, and I can tell you that no, they are not as such, because that's a political question. If the American administration would sanction any ships, CENTCOM would do that on a like a US-only kind of mission, but I'm not aware of anything, and we are not led into that space. So sorry. Yeah, that's a good question, sir. The question was if any country, in this case France, would send troops into Ukraine, how that would affect NATO, and if that would be I'm assuming, the question is also if that would affect the Article 5 as part of that. So far, that's actually what has been discussed. It has been relayed. Countries have talked about it, but still they're really reluctant about sending troops into Ukraine. We have troops visiting in Ukraine. All the European countries have troops visiting Ukraine for getting a lot of the lessons learned and lessons identified. But they are not, considered as troops, as being part of the conflict. They are not doing any guard duties. There's been a lot of talk about maybe guard duty in the western part of Ukraine to sort of free up some Ukrainian forces to go to the front line. But I don't see any European countries actually wanting to do that. It have been talked about, yes, but I don't see any of the countries actually willing to do it. I don't think it will affect NATO, because the discussions at NATO headquarters was more like in the beginning. We don't want to, NATO to be dragged into the conflict. So if any country, should they send troops to Ukraine, it would be regarded as a bilateral thing, and NATO would. I'm pretty sure that NATO would message exactly that. Whatever a sovereign country decides to do, that's up to them. This doesn't kind of make the conflict involving all of us, should any of them be attacked or killed. Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you. The question is, who in the coalition actually makes a decision on anything? And that's a good question, and that's what I've been struggling with ever since I took over as a chairman, because that's the beauty of working in an international coalition like this. I don't have any command authority over any of the countries. So I can do whatever I like. I can make as many decisions as I like. But if the countries are the ones that are actually going to do something about it, they really don't care. They don't care, and I can do whatever I like. I think that recently I've been trying to, even as this sounds quite funny, but in the meeting room we are in a set position. We have flags, as where we are sitting. But even changing that seating plan, that's really huge. And for some countries, I don't want to sit next to that country. My country is more prominent than this country because we are either facilitating more U.S. troops or we have been participating more in U.S. operations. And all of that, to make that, I cross my fingers because last Thursday I sort of made the announcement of the final plan, and hopefully it will actually be put into effect within a week or two. But I really depend on persuading each and every country. So on my part, it takes a lot of work just going into the offices and listening to them and say, what's your concern about this? Would you be willing to sit in this position? And yeah, this is a small, tiny piece that really, in my country, it doesn't really matter, but to some, yeah. Yeah, again, there is no top in the coalition. CENTCOM does the planning, and of course we get to have a say in the planning, but CENTCOM decides 100%. So the coalition, we have in Iraq, for the military coalition, we have a commander as well, but he is actually answering to CENTCOM. So if we have any concerns or we are not pleased with the decision in CENTCOM, it's my duty as a national representative to put that forward to CENTCOM. And if we and my country back home are not satisfied with any questions or how things are progressing, it's up to us to withdraw our troops or make that decision. Yeah. So the coalition just to be 100% sure, it's not a set organization. It's a coalition of sovereign members, member states, and yeah, the member states are sovereign. Yeah, how has this current administration been since January, February, and until now, and how has that affected our daily work, I guess you're asking to? And in honesty, of course, we discuss amongst ourselves, we talk, we have, of course, our national perspectives as well. But all of that talk, all of that discussions is actually taking place in the corridors and at informal meetings, and we can talk about and discuss anything. But when it comes to the official business, it's really military to military professionalism. That's sort of the key for us. So, you know, I've been in the military for 35 years. I know I have political masters. I know that can change with the next election. So we tend to just focus on what we are actually good at, and that's the military to military coordination and everyday work. And of course, we try to sort of ignore the noise that comes from either our own countries. You know, France is in the middle of a lot of turnover politically as well. Yeah, we really try to just keep it military to military business. But of course, we talk about the situation. We talk about how it will affect us, because we need also to give some room for our both the military planners back home, but also the politicians, in order to put any sort of advanced planning into their space as well, so they know what to expect and not to expect. So even though I'm here as a national, when I talk to CENTCOM, whenever I talk to my country, I'm kind of the US expert or the CENTCOM expert as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, does the recent events in and around my country, the North Sea, the cable cutting, even the gas pipeline when the Ukraine war started. First of all, I will not sort of speculate as to any actors being involved. I don't think that China is being involved. We haven't been able to establish any hard evidence as to who is involved. We all have our opinions as to who might be involved. But in my country, it's been a wake-up call as well. So of course we realize that when we have drones flying over our airfields, of course it could be some guy with a drone that doesn't even know where the airfield is. But also, you know, there are more serious instances as well, and it's been up to us to decide what to do about it. And the way we treat it is actually quite seriously. So we are ramping up our expenditures on that sort of that part as well, buying drone detection equipment, buying counter-drone equipment as well, just to be able to make sure that we get the hard evidence, because that's the hard part, that's getting the evidence, getting the drone itself, trying to establish the link. In my country, it's actually a police job to take care of the security in the country, even really close to or in some barracks as well. So we work with the police, but it's a huge problem for us. I actually think it's a huge problem for all the European countries. This being, you have a lot of hybrid actions, and we really cannot make the smoking gun point at a specific country or a specific actor. That's a problem for us, and any country, I'd say. Yes? Yeah, how NATO is involved in containing the Chinese threat? Not directly, I can tell you, because that's kind of built into the NATO pact, that it's the North Atlantic, and the most extension of it, as I know it, is into the Middle East and the North African parts, because we have in NATO they also have to protect against migration and terrorism as well. So that's kind of the area of operations. And if you should make any link to the Chinese part of it, it would be like, us being present with NATO troops in Iraq with the NATO mission would sort of be playing into the strategic competition with China. But otherwise, NATO is not involved, to my knowledge anyway. Yeah.
Thank you for being here, giving a hand.
Thank you, Bob.